With everything installed, we can now set up our doc project. Throughout the rest of this course, we'll be building a sample documentation site called Coding with Kids. The actual content for this site won't matter as much as the processes, syntax, and tools we'll be using to create it. The Sphinx Quick Start command is what we'll use to create the project, and we want to have considered two things before we run the command: where we should put our docs, inside a code project folder or on its own, and the project name and author name, which appear in the built docs. Armed with that information, we jump in. For our example, we'll put our doc project in a place of its own and call the project Coding with Kids. So we'll first create that directory, and then we'll go into that directory, and then we'll run the Sphinx Quick Start command. In most of the cases, the defaults are fine and the text prompting you for a decision is pretty helpful. The first choice is where to put the docs, and we'll leave the current directory default alone. We can leave the source and build directory config alone as well, which means that source content will be placed directly in the root folder, and the build will go in a folder within the root directory. Prefixing directories for static content with an underscore is fine, so we'll leave that too. Next up comes our name prompts, and we'll provide our choices for these. Moving on, we're asked about versions. If you're documenting a specific software project, you may want to provide these. I'll leave them blank. Next up comes a language option, which I'll leave as English. Then a suffix for source files, and I'll leave this as RST for restructured text. I'll leave the starting doc named index, and then we can opt into EPUB support if we want to produce something that could be read on a Kindle or other ebook reader. I'll leave this off. Next up comes the option to include some Sphinx extensions in our project. I won't include any of them. Many, but not all, relate to documenting Python projects. Lastly, we agree to create a makefile and a Windows command file to simplify our build process, and then we're done. If we now do a dir, we can see the files and folder that have been created. And then to build the project, we just run make HTML. If we run the index.html file that's in the build HTML folder, here's our website. You'll see that it doesn't look like read the docs just yet, and we'll fix that next, after first a quick discussion about the text editor we'll be using.